to this episode of the Stitch Session. As we get a little closer to back to school, or actually we are already in back to school mode, people are thinking about school items, school clothing, and all of my crochet friends, I know you're always thinking, well, what could I crochet? And I thought for this week's project, we would work on this really cute pencil case. Actually, you could use this case for anything. In fact, I'm going to use mine for all of my crochet supplies on the go. Okay. And I don't actually, funny enough, I don't even have any of my crochet hooks nearby, but that's what I'm going to use my case for. And this was actually super quick to make and very easy. If you know your single crochet stitches, you are ready to rock and roll, because that is the stitch we used for this project. Now, also a wonderful thing is you can make this in varying degrees of length as well as width. So I think on average pencil cases go anywhere from 8 to 10 inches in length and anywhere from 3 to 6 inches in depth. So that would be anywhere between 20 and 25 centimeters in length and anywhere between 10 and 15 centimeters in depth. So for those of you that are on the metric system, hopefully that helps you out. But I whipped this one up in basically just a couple of days, right? So if you've got a couple of children, oh, I got a little tail there I need to sew in. If you've got a couple of children you need to make for, instead of buying, why not just create one with your own design? And for those of you that are really crafty, and you know how to sew, you can even sew their initials on or their names. I mean, you can get really, really creative. But for today, I'm going to show you how you're going to start, build your pencil case. I'm even going to show you how to add the zipper. Now, don't worry if you don't know how to sew. I don't sew, except I do know how to sew buttons on things. So I actually hand sewed this zipper on, and I think you can see that there. It's just a matter of making sure that you keep your line nice and straight, and I was still able to produce a really sturdy fastened zipper. So let's get all of our materials together and let's create our own pencil case. Okay, so to create your pencil case, you're going to need some yarn, which for this project I used a very fine weight yarn. This is, well, actually, these are some leftovers, but this is Aunt Lydia's Fashion 3 yarn. It's considered a super fine #1 yarn, and it calls for using a 3.75 millimeter hook, which is the hook I'm going to use for it. And just to create a little color contrast, I also have some of this Peyton's Grace yarn left over. It's the mercerized cotton, and I really, really love using this for all kinds of projects. Now, the funny thing is, they consider this a lightweight 3, and the Aunt Lydia's is considered a super fine #1, but when I hold them up next to each other, they look pretty darn comparable. Now, the funny thing is, the Peyton's Grace is also calling for a 3.75 millimeter hook. So that is exactly what I'm going to use. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with the comparable. I don't see much of a difference. And they're both a mercerized cotton, which I think for something like a pencil case or a hook case, by the way, it'll be nice and sturdy for you. You can throw it in the wash and all that fun stuff. So that is what I'm using. The Peyton's Grace usually comes in a 50-gram ball. The Aunt Lydia's is always funny because I can never find the quantity on the label, but you will definitely not need more. If you're only doing one color, you definitely will not need more than one ball, okay? And I got mine off of Amazon. You can find them at Michael's especially. I have not seen these at Walmart. If you are in the States, you might be able to also find this at Joann's or Hobby Lobby. But for those of you that like the quick and easy delivery, I will leave my Amazon link for you in the description box down below, okay? And make sure you have a pair of scissors and a trusty darning needle to sew in your ends. And for this project, you will need a zipper, okay? And I would recommend a 10-inch zipper. This one is quite long because I'm using it for a different project, and I just haven't gotten out and gotten a zipper yet. As always, you can find these in any craft store. Like I said, Walmart, Michaels carries them, a little bit more expensive. And of course, you can also find this on Amazon. The only thing is, if you look it up on Amazon, it's hard to just get one, and sometimes things like zippers I don't use a lot, so it might be worth your while to take a run over to Walmart, but I'll also leave a link for you down below. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so to begin, I'm going to use my green color here, and we are just simply going to start by placing a slip knot on our hook. Okay, and we are going to work our pencil case from the bottom and work in the round all the way up until we need to sew in our zipper. Okay, so we're going to begin by chaining 46 chains, and this is going to give us the length of the pencil case, which I am creating mine to have 8 inches in length. So we'll begin 1, 2, 3. Okay, once you have your 46 chains, your work will look something like this. You just want to make sure it's not twisted, and you want to keep it fairly even. And then just double check, because depending on the gauge that you crochet at, you might need a little bit more if you're a tighter crocheter. So I'm measuring mine here, and you want to measure it without really having to stretch it too much. And mine is right at 8 inches. Now, I want to make sure that I can fit, the average pen, and see, this is the pen with the cap on, so that's going to be okay, or a pencil, which is here, just like that. Or if you're making this for your crochet hooks, which might not be a bad idea, you want to make sure all of your crochet hooks can fit in there comfortably, okay? So we want to not have to squeeze them in there. So if you feel like it's a bit too snug for you, like see for me, there is some give there, so I'm not really stretching it. There's some give on either side. I would add another few chains if you wanted to, okay? For me, I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm going to leave mine at 46 chains. And now we're going to begin creating our round. So what we want to do now is we want to find the second chain from our hook. Remember, we never count the loop that's on the hook. So you will count 1 and 2. Okay, so this is the second one. Into that chain, we're going to insert 1 single crochet. Just like that. And that is what we're going to do into every single chain to the end of your row. So into the next stitch, I'm going to just help it in through there, pull up a loop, just like that. Now, if you're a little bit newer, or you're not a fan of using fine yarns, you might just have to pack your patience a little bit. I really suggest using this finer yarn just because it's going to give you a tighter fabric or a more closed-in fabric, which helps you to maintain all of your items in there. So especially if they've got smaller items that might slip through the stitches, you just want to have a fabric that's stitched a little bit more tightly. For the most part, pencils and crochet hooks and things like that are fine. But just in case, sometimes you want to throw in something, a smaller item, tighter stitch always works better with a finer yarn. So I'm going to leave you to do this all the way to the end of the row, and then I'll meet up with you when you get to the end. Okay, so I've just single crocheted into my last chain. So your work is going to look something like that, okay? And now we're going to crochet around that last chain and work along the bottom. And this is where we're going to create our first round as opposed to rows. So you just finished placing one single crochet into that last stitch. We're now going to go back into that same stitch and place two more. So we've got one and we've got two. And this just helps us come around the bend here, okay? And now we're going to work along the bottom of our chain rows. So we're going to go into the next stitch right there, and I'm going to try and work over my tail there. And I will continue to place one single crochet into every single stitch. And in fact, it's probably going to be a little bit easier to find the stitch you need to place your hook into. Okay, just like that. So you can see it's coming around there. So you're going to do that all the way to the end. And once you get to your very last stitch, which actually is your first stitch, maybe a little tricky to see, you're going to place two single crochets back into that last stitch, okay? I'll meet up with you there just to help you kind of navigate it, okay? So one single crochet all the way back to the beginning. Okay, so I have come to my very last stitch, which is technically the first stitch. Now remember, we went into the second chain from the hook. So technically your first single crochet is that chain one little extra stitch there. So a great way to know if you're on the right track is to count backwards. So once we've come around all the way, you want to end up having 92 stitches. So I know I have 91 stitches currently. I need 92, so I know I need to place one more single crochet into that same stitch. And there we go. And now I'm going to go into that very first stitch we created. I'm going to slip stitch to join. Into this last stitch, you might want to place a stitch marker just to help you gauge where the beginning and ends of your rounds are. Even though we're going to be turning our work, sometimes it's just useful to have that clear marking placed there for you, okay? So now we finished round one, and now what we're going to do is we are going to continue on to round two, and every other round after this is going to be the same until you create the depth of your case. So I'm going to chain one, and I'm actually going to turn my work. So we're going to work back around the way we came. And into the same stitch, we are going to place one single crochet. Okay, and then if you had placed a stitch marker there, you might want to place it right there. So that way when you come around, you'll know exactly where that first single crochet is. I don't always use stitch markers, so for me, I'm just going to go ahead without it, but definitely don't be afraid to use them. I do use them periodically as well. Now I'm just going to go into the very next stitch and place a single crochet. And this is pretty much going to be it, like single crochet practice all the way. Okay, so one single crochet into each and every single stitch all the way around. So even when you come around the bend here, you just continue placing one stitch into each stitch around the bend, and you continue. So at the end of round two, you should still have 92 stitches, okay? So go ahead and do that, and I will meet you at the end of round two. Okay, so I've come to the end of round two, and this right here looks like it's one more stitch to go into, but it's actually where the chain one came out of. So what I want to do is I just want to, and this is why if you're a little bit newer, having that stitch marker there goes a long way. But I know where I'm at. So what you're going to do is you're just going to slip stitch to join your round. I'm just going to have to help it through there. And that is the end of round two, okay? So you can see your work is starting to curl a little bit. That's normal. So round three, you're going to chain one, and you're going to turn your work again. So what we're trying to do is relatively keep our seam in that same spot the whole time. Okay, so what we want to do is back into that same stitch that we just slip stitched out of, right there. You're going to insert and single crochet. okay? And then you're going to do the same thing again. One single crochet into each stitch all the way around, okay? And it's at the end of the third round that we're going to create a little bit of a change just simply by changing color, okay? Now, if you are not changing color and you are opting to do a solid color, then you would just continue on from here and create as many rounds as you need until you reach the depth of your desire. My depth is going to be 3 inches in depth. And if you want to just do that and skip ahead to the zipper portion, then I will leave a timestamp down below. You can just fast forward to that. Otherwise, for those of you that are following along with the same kind of color combo idea, go ahead and finish your third round, and I will meet back up with you at the end to talk about switching colors. Okay, so I've reached the end of round 3. So my work is looking something like that, so you can see it's starting to curl up now. Now, normally I would slip stitch to join, which I'm going to do. However, I'm going to place my hook through, but I'm not going to slip stitch with the green yarn. This is where I want to introduce my white. So if you want to create that funky little stripe going through it, this is how I would do it. So I'm bringing my white yarn in, and that is the yarn I'm going to use to pull through and slip stitch to join. Okay, so I'm going to slip stitch, or I'm going to insert as if I'm going to slip stitch, but instead of using the green yarn, I'm going to use that white yarn. So just brought that in there, place that on my hook, and I'm going to pull that through nice and easy as best you can. Whoops, see, it gets very testy sometimes. It's just because I'm trying to do it very slowly to show you guys. So I pull it all the way through. And so then I tighten up my green yarn and I tighten up my white, okay? Now I do not snip off my white yarn because I'm gonna keep going back and forth between the green and the white. So I just kind of push it off to the side there. Now that I've got the white on my hook, I am now going to chain 1. That helps to really secure that there. Then I'll just work over my tail. And I'm going to do what I've always done. I'm going to go back into the stitch I just slip stitched. Actually, sorry. I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to just try and hide that tail here. And I'm going to go back into the stitch I just slip stitched out of. So it's going to be right there. It's going to be a little tighter. And I'm going to single crochet. Just like that. And then I'm going to continue as we've done for the previous 2 rounds. Okay, this is pretty much it, guys. So you're going to go all the way around 1 single crochet. The single crochet stitch is the stitch of this project. Now what I have decided to do is that I am going to do 1 round of one round of white for every 3 rounds of green. Okay, and of course you can do it in any design that you like. So I am going to finish 1 round of white, and then when I slip stitch to join, I will bring back my green color. Then I will proceed to do 3 rounds of the green, slip stitch with the white, and do 1 round of the white. So I'm doing 3 rounds of green, 1 of white, 3, 1, 3, 1. So that's pretty much it, okay? But what I'm going to do, because you may be a little kind of uncertain how to bring back the green if you're a little newer, I'm going to finish my white round and meet back up with you just to take you through bringing your green back in, okay? So continue 1 single crochet into each stitch as you've been doing before. Okay, so I am ready to slip stitch. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go into that next stitch. Now remember, this does look like a stitch, but see how that chain is coming out of there? That's where we slip stitch. So that's the chain 1 we're going to use. Now remember, we're not hooking our white. We now drop the white and we pick up our green. Whoops, actually, I prefer to push that green to the back. Okay, just like that. Insert your hook. Whoops, drop the white now and pick up the green. Okay, just like that. And now you're ready to continue. So that was round 4 technically. Now I'm going to do round 5, 6, and 7 in the green. So I'm going to chain 1, turn my work. Now every time you are turning your work, the color that you have left behind, always try and push it to the back. So in this case, it's right here. So I'm pushing it to the back. So that way it gets carried up with me. So every time I slip stitch to join in the green, I make sure that I push that white to the back when I start a new round. That way it gets carried up with my work. Otherwise, if you leave the white here and you go 3 rows up, that means you're gonna have to pull up the yarn there and it's gonna look very obvious. So at the end of every round or at the beginning, just push that other color back, okay? So I've chained 1 and now I'm gonna go back into that same stitch and see what that does. It traps the white in there. So now when you come back around, it's already ready to go in the next round, okay? And the rest, you know already. It's 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. And I just love how that white is just adding a little bit of accent. Now, if you're wondering like which way should my right side and wrong side be, it doesn't really matter because we are turning our work every time we end the round. So at the end of it, you can have it this way or you can turn it that way, okay? So I am now gonna set you off and I will meet back up with you once you've created the depth so you can see it's really starting to sit. This is the bottom now. And I'm gonna go until I reach my 3 inches in depth and then we'll talk about fastening your zipper and you're pretty much there. Okay, I've completed my rows or my rounds. And so my pencil case is looking something like that. You can see I've already started experimenting with the zipper there. Now I do want to clarify that I originally said I was going to do a height of 3 inches and I actually went closer to 4 inches. So this is sitting at about 3.75 inches. And if we take it in centimeters, we have 9.5 centimeters in height. And so I just wanted a little bit more depth. So it looks just something like that. And what I did is I took a pair of scissors and I just put them in there because for me, I might use this for my hooks as well, my crochet stuff. And I just wanted to make sure my scissors could fit in there. So I went for a little bit more depth. And so you just slip stitch at the end and I just have my ends in here. And so now we're going to talk about sewing on our zipper. Now what I've done is this is actually inside out, okay? So this is going to be my case like that, okay? So just determine for yourself which side is going to be the right side. And once you do that, you then want to turn it inside out because now we want to work on sewing our zipper. So what I've done here, and the really great thing about doing this color combination is that I use the white as my gauge here. So I finished with my 3 rounds of the green. And so that gives me a nice little gap there for my zipper. Now, previously I had said you're going to need a 10-inch zipper, but the funny thing is, good luck finding a 10-inch zipper. So this is just under 8 inches in length. So you can either get them in 9-inch, actually you can start as small as 6 inches, 9 inches, 12, 18 is the next one up, etc., etc. So I did buy a 12-inch zipper and then I ended up cutting it a little bit shorter. And so the only thing you're going to have to remember is that there is a little stop there that you're going to have to remove and then replace it closer to where you want it. So that's why that black line is there because that's where I cut my zipper. So you always want to make sure that you have a little bit of a tail over the edge there for you. So you've got your work inside out. And now what you want to do is you want to place your zipper wrong side facing up, okay? So this is the inside, and this is the wrong side of the zipper. So as you can see, the right side is there. Because remember, when we're done sewing this, we're gonna turn it back right side in. So that's how you can see that there. So what I did is I lined up my zipper close to where my white row ended, which actually made for a perfect little guide there. And you can use straight pins. I like using safety pins because I know for sure it's not going to slip out and not going anywhere. So that is what I'm going to do. I've secured my zipper with the safety pins, and now I'm going to take my thread needle with my thread, and I'm going to hand sew that first little side along. Now, some people might actually secure both sides, but that would mean you'd have to unzip at this stage and work your way through it. And I just feel like this is the best way to do it. I'm not a sewist per se, but this is the way that I have hand sewn all zippers on most projects that I have done. So that is how I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it. Okay, so once you've gotten your thread through the thread needle, we're ready to go. And I always like to leave a lot of length, right? Because it's always better to have extra than not enough. So I'm going to take the side that I've already pinned down. As you can see, it's nicely lined up there. And I'm going to start right at the edge. So right where it bends here, I want to just start by placing my hook in and through. Now I am using white yarn, or sorry, I am using white thread, by the way. Now it'll, even though it's blending in through the zipper, the white may or may not show up through the green. It's such a thin thread that I'm not overly concerned about it. But if you are the type of person that wants to hide the white yarn, then that'll have to be an extra step that you're going to do to make sure that you hide it on the other side. The other option is to use the green yarn just like the color of your yarn. So if you happen to be doing the colors I'm doing, green and white, then that would probably be something you'd want to do. But I'm not too worried about it. So see this ridge up here? I'm going to go as close to that top ridge as I can because I can feel that that is where the top edge of my project sits, right? So I'm just going to turn that over and it's sitting right there, okay? So that's where I'm going to make sure to go into. And the first few times I'm going to go in back and forth in the same spot, and I just want to secure my spot there. You can also place a knot there. You can do all kinds of things. So I'm just going to keep going back and forth. So this is my second time here. And now I'm just going to go in here so that it creates a little bit of a knot. Be careful because sometimes the first time I think I already lost my thread all the way through. So it takes a little bit of patience. Now, if this part is not for you and you have a very good friend that knows how to sew and you can sweet talk them into doing this step for you, then you are off to the races. I, on the other hand, am opting to do this myself and just doing it by hand, which I don't mind doing at all. And I find this fairly easy. Okay, now what you can do once you've secured it there is if you just want to have a better look at where your needle is going, is actually have this side facing to you so that you can see as you place your needle through. Oops, right there. So that's always where I'm aiming. I'm aiming to at least get that first row, or the last row, I should say. And I'm just going to weave my thread in and then back out. Okay, nice and simple. This is kind of a version of the mattress stitch, I guess. And then you're going to come back out. So you can see now I'm coming in, and then I'm going to go into the next, and I'm going to go out. So it's pretty straightforward. It's nothing too mind blasting. The main thing is you're going to have to take your time, okay? And so you can see it's already securing quite nicely. What I like to do is I'll go down the way to the end, and especially here, I want to make sure I get right around the corner. Even if this comes around the bend a little bit, I want to really secure that end in. And then I will just turn around and I'll come back the way I came and do the same thing. So I can see I've got a little bit of a gap here. So I'm going to go all the way to the end. And sometimes I even do it 3 or 4 times. Again, if you're doing it on the sewing machine, it's a non-starter, but by hand, I really like to reinforce that. And it just makes it a lot stronger. So go ahead and do that back and forth. And then you're just going to knot off at the end. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm just going to finish my first side here. And again, this is for those of you that are really new and maybe don't have an option to sew it on the sewing machine and want to do it by hand. This is just to take you through it. If you already know kind of how the deal goes, then I'll meet you at the end. Otherwise, I'll meet most of you when we're getting ready to do the second side. Okay, so I have sewn my one side, so it looks something like that. Tried to stay as straight as I could along the lines there. And now we're ready to do our second side. And actually, I just wanted to kind of show you guys another project I had previously done. This is a pouch I had knitted. And then I did the same thing here. I added the zipper. And I just wanted to show you guys, I hand sewed this zipper as well. But you can see it's pretty sturdy. And it's lasted me for quite a while. So nothing wrong with hand sewing as long as you really reinforce your work. So let's go on to the second part right now. So this is where I still have my work inside out. I am going to unzip this because I definitely have a guideline for me. Now, if this were any other project, it's usually recommended that you mark out your line, but because of this design, I was able to have a visual line already. So I'm going to just turn my work. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin down this side the same way I did on the first side, making sure that I stay nice and straight along my guide. Now, what you have to watch is that you don't do something like this, because see, that's going to pull your zipper over. So you want to make sure that it's still sitting nice and flush for when you close your zipper. Okay, opening and closing. So just like that, and I'm just going to go along the way, and I'm going to pin down my panel there. And you can use as many or as little amount of pins that you feel you need. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to do that all the way down and secure my panel just like it did before. And then I'm going to grab my needle and thread, which I've already got here ready and waiting. And I'm going to do the exact same thing I did along this side that I did along here. And just to show you guys, this is going to be the right side facing out. And I'm very happy with how that came out. Okay, so the same technique, just make sure you do not buckle where your zipper pull is going to be. Okay, and then we will be finished our pencil case. So I'll meet you back here shortly. Okay, so I just finished my second side here. And I've knotted it, I'm snipping it off. And now it's time to turn it right side out. So you can see sewn on both sides. I really like how that came out. See, it's very sturdy. And now I'm going to turn it right side out. And you want to just fix up your corners here and tuck in those little ends, just like that. And now you take your zip pull and you zip it shut. Whoops. Just going to tuck that guy in there. You can also just, especially after the fact, I didn't want to do it at the time because I wanted to make sure that it would zip up. You can then go back and sew that guide down at the very end. And there you go. There is your pencil case ready for the first day of school. Look at how clean that line looks. I just love it. So guys, I hope you have found this to be yet another fun and easy project to do. Maybe you've got a couple of these you're going to make before school starts in a couple of weeks. I thought it would be a nice, fun project yet another different way that you can use your crochet. And all we did was use single crochet stitches, okay? And that's all we used to create your pencil case. Now, remember, I love to see the colors you guys choose. So tag me on Instagram. I really want to see the different types of color you chose. Maybe you chose 3 different colors. Maybe you did it a solid color. I think it's always really neat and interesting to see how people make their design choices. And it's a fun thing to chat about and connect with you guys over. So make sure you do that. And remember, if you're not already subscribed, I invite you to do so. Come and hang out with me every Wednesday morning. I have a new tutorial for you guys every week. Now, if you have any detailed questions about this project or any other project, just leave it for me in the comment box down below. Or you can always reach me directly at info@crochetcrafty.com, and come and check out the website crochetcrafty.com. Lots of handy crochet tools on there. There are definitely some free written patterns if you're looking for some of the written patterns, as well as links to our Etsy shop where you can find additional written patterns. All right, guys, I hope you have an amazing day. Happy crocheting as always. Take good care of yourselves, and I will see you guys in the next session. Bye-bye.